So African Israelite assassin? What are you talking about, Benaiah? Now, this is actually something I've been, I've seen personally. I have, there's one thing to have eyewitness testimony, but there's one thing, especially, praise be to the Most High. He's given me a voice in Israel. He's allowed me to share the truth with Mishpachah. And, of course, when you're in that role, family, and when you're going to these tours and you're out there, you see stuff, right? You see stuff. I don't necessarily share a lot of that information, but you see stuff. And I think at this point in time, family, it's important to share this information because we're also seeing another pattern emerge. And anytime we see a potentially dangerous pattern, we want to get this information out to Israel, all right, out to Israel at large. All right, so with that being said, let's get into it, family. So what I want to start off with, I just want to start off with the history of it, right? Just talk about the history of, let's say, for instance, about the African American community and about, the injustices against the African American community, whether it be stuff with our drinking water. And of course, when they pollute our drinking water, that in itself is causing health issues, right? You can see where it says, new drinking water report, communities of color more likely to suffer drinking water violations for years. So for years. So this is before we knew that we were the people of the book, right? Before we knew all that stuff, whether or not we knew it or not, but, we were under the curses. We are under the curses, right? And those curses were landing on us left and right, and we had no idea why they were landing on us. But praise be to the Most High. Now that we're awake, now we know why. And now we, hopefully we've started turning back to the Most High and crying out, right? And crying out for injustices like the one you see on your screen. New drinking water report, communities of color, so-called African Americans, African Israelites, more likely to suffer drinking water violations. So over the years, we've had to deal with this, family. And the question that we have to start asking is, well, who is causing these things in our community, right? Who's causing the water to be bad in our community? Who's causing the issue that we're having with the police officers in our community? Is it caused by random people? Is it caused by a random group? Or is it the same group over and over and over and over again? That's the thing we have to start asking, family. But let's just finish this thought on drinking water. So the drinking water issue that we're seeing in our communities, and this is just another report on it. And you can see this, the Harvard Catalyst. Communities of color disproportionately exposed to PFAS, that's a bad thing, pollution in drinking water. This new study reveals community of color, Black and Hispanic Latino residents are more likely to be exposed to this bad stuff, right? Then it says, people who live in communities with higher proportions of Black and Hispanic Latino residents are more likely to be exposed to harmful levels and that's a word I'm not even going to try. I just say poly substances in their water supplies than people living in other communities, according to a new study led by researchers from Harvard T.H. Chan School of Public Health. Right. And the main thing here, family, is how does that take place? Well, you can find some of that information in the next line. It says the researchers link this finding to the disproportionate citing of sources of PFA pollution, such as major manufacturers, airports, military bases, wastewater treatment plants, and landfills near watershed serving these communities. So basically, all these places that create this pollution are near Black communities. 9 times out of 10, what they're saying is that they are in Black communities, right? And this is why when they talk about, well, in the African American communities, yeah, their cancer rates are so high. Their high blood pressure rates are just so high. There's a reason for that, family. It's not just happening, right? It's a product of the environment. It's a product of what's around us, or what people are putting around us, or what somebody or some group is putting or placing around us. So that's water. So let's keep going. And how about the air? So you gotta drink, right? But you gotta breathe. And did you ever hear about the air quality in Louisiana? I mean, there's a place where they call Cancer Alley. Cancer Alley, likely more toxic. The air in Cancer Alley, and this is from The Guardian. It says the air in Louisiana's Cancer Alley likely more toxic than previously thought. Now, in this one, this is just another example of how the environment that we are surrounded by is, populated with all these bad things that are harming our community, whether it be the water. Now we're talking about the air. And you can see in nature, it says, the father of environmental justice exposes the geography of inequality or inequity. And it says, Black people face some of the highest cancer and asthma rates in the US. Statistics that are inarguably linked to the environment in which someone lives, works, and plays. But until Robert D. Bullard began collecting data in the 1970s, no one fully understood how a person's surroundings can affect their health. And no one, not even Bullard, knew how segregated the most populated places really were. And it says, and this is interesting where it says, and this is still part of that article or paper, says, your first paper in 1979 was the first to use hard data to quantify environmental racism. I don't know why I'm struggling with that word, but environmental racism. And it says, my job was to design the study, collect the data, and present maps that showed where all the landfills, incinerators, and solid waste sites were located in Houston from the 1920s up to 1979. We found that listen to this, family, 5 out of 5 of the city-owned landfills were in predominantly Black neighborhoods. 5 out of 5, family. As were 3 out of 4 of the privately owned landfills. 6 out of 8 of the city's incinerators were in Black neighborhoods. Black people made up only 25% of Houston's population at the time, yet 82% of the garbage in the city was dumped on them. Think about that, family. They only made up 25% of the Houston population, but 82% of the garbage from the city was dumped in the African American community. Think about that, family. So again, this is just kind of pointing out, family, that there is a pattern. This is a pattern of, people modifying the environment that we're in, whether it be the environment. And actually, we're going to start talking about food here in a moment. The air we breathe, the water we drink, right? All this, the pollutions that are in them, all that, is unfortunately affecting the African American community. Let's keep going, family. So think about this, family. So when the children, when the Dimona people, their progenitors, were in Chicago, there was a Israelite group in Chicago, and they wanted to move back to, I know, folks think differently about where Israel is, but this isn't that conversation. But just to let you know, family, but that when they wanted to move back over into the Middle East, what happened was that they said that, oh yeah, we have a place where you can stay. We'll put you in the city of Dimona, right? And that's actually where they're located today. And so as you can see on the map, this is a map of, Google Maps. And what I pulled up for you is the city of Dimona. This is where our Israelite brothers and sisters are in the Israeli state today. And what you'll also see on the map is the Negev Nuclear Research Center. This is where, that state of Israel, where they do all their nuclear tests, all their nuclear development, right next to where they put these people. Again, who's putting Israel or African Americans or blacks or whatever name you want to use, who's putting our people right next to these toxic places, which it unfortunately is having an impact, detrimental impact on our people. Again, what I'm showing you, family, is a pattern, right? I'm just showing you that this pattern has been around for a long time before we came into the truth. And even while we're in the truth, it has been there all these years, all this time. But like I said, we talked about the water, then we talked about the air, right? And we talked about, whether these places are landfills, chemical places, military places, somehow, some way, they're always making their way, close to the black communities. Wherever the blacks are, these places are being placed there. But then what about your food, right? Well, surely food is evenly distributed, across the U.S. I mean, surely our community is not being targeted by food, right? Well, let's take a look at blood pressure, because we know one of the things that plagues the African American community is high blood pressure. And to me, family, it's one of those things where this is not too hard to understand, because if you eat a lot of salt, you're going to have high blood pressure. I'll say it again. If you eat a lot of salt, you're going to have high blood pressure. And a shout out to Caribbean Kitchen. And that was the commercial that I ran at the beginning of the live. Caribbean Kitchen, what they're doing is that they're specializing in low sodium seasoning. So if you're having to watch your high blood pressure, watch your sodium intake, check out Caribbean Kitchen, because their seasonings are low in sodium. All right, just shameless plug out there to my brother Morey Vaughn on that in Israel. But again, just kind of let's finish up with high blood pressure. So high blood pressure, does high blood pressure plague our community? Well, there's high amounts of salt, high sodium intake. Well, why is there high sodium intake in our community? It says lower income Americans at higher risk of death from excess salt. Well, why is that? So let's check this out, family. And, of course, they have various studies on this, right? And let's see, did I pull anything out of here? It says background, the U.S. population's dietary sodium well in excess of recommended levels. It is unknown how the contribution of snack foods to sodium intake has changed over time, and whether disparities exist within specific subgroups of the U.S. population. And of course, this is a study where it says the objective is to examine short and long-term trends in the contribution of snack food sources. Well, we know that it's more than just snack foods, right? It's more than just that, right? But I don't think I actually grabbed the other article, which actually also talks about the sodium and about how in the low income neighborhoods, the foods in those low income neighborhoods have high sodium. And surprise, 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 in those neighborhoods, the population, unfortunately, the population also has high blood pressure. So again, what are they putting in our community that's impacting us? And who is putting this in our community, right? Who's putting this in our community? And this is an interesting report, family, because I just want to show you that, like, possibly the reason why we're so sensitive to high sodium, right? The reason why so-called African Americans are sensitive to high sodium. So check this out. It says, it's startling but true. 4 times more African Americans in the U.S. die from kidney failure, and 75% of Black people over 55 suffer from high blood pressure. The root of this problem isn't in modern medical labs, but rather in the history of medieval Timbuktu. So what does this have to do with West Africa? Let's check it out. It says, back then, in the interior of West Africa was rich in gold, but so low in sodium that Africans from this region had never even tasted table salt. Think about that, family. So, and I'm a big proponent of this, family. I say that if you take somebody that was programmed, that was raised, that was designed for a certain place, right? Kind of like an aquarium. Like when you go into a pet store and you see the fish, they're in fish tanks. And you see the the gerbils or whatever you want to call it, the hamsters, they're in those cages. But if you take the fish out of the fish tank and you put the fish in the gerbil cage and you swap the gerbil and put him in the aquarium, he's not going to do so well because he's not in his environment. He's not where they're supposed to be. And likewise for African Americans, we know that we're not from this place, right? We know that we were taken, however you believe we got here, we arrived here in a place that, a place that is not our home. And we are in an environment that we weren't designed for, right? This, in my opinion, is why a lot of so-called African Americans are running into these issues. But I think, what we're also seeing here, family, is that these environments that we're being placed in are being manipulated to be detrimental to us, whether it be the air, the food, the water, right? Or other things. But in any case, what this article is saying, family, is that in West Africa, the places, place where we were supposedly taken from, it says West Africa was rich in gold, but so low in sodium that Africans from this region had never even tasted table salt. And it says the elites traded their gold for rock salt. It says, treating it like precious stones. Meanwhile, poor farmers had no access to salt. Over the course of many generations, their bodies had become genetically adapted to this unusual limitation. When slavers invaded in the 17th century, they kidnapped these salt-deprived farmers, marching them hundreds of miles to the coast to be shipped to the Americas. These kidnapped individuals are the ancestors of today's 38 million African Americans. And of course, they don't know that we're Israel, but we'll just go with that. And it says, as an African evolutionary historian and translator, I discovered the health impact of the West African interior's lack of salt. Farmers there survived on just 200 milligrams of salt a day, even though medical text says humans need at least 500. So in either way, what this article is saying, family, is that we were taken from a low sodium environment and now we're being placed in a high sodium environment. And then they're wondering why are you, the so-called African Americans, having all these heart problems? Why are you having all these blood pressure problems? It's because the environment that we're in is being manipulated, in my opinion. And the environment that we're in doesn't match the environment that we were designed for, right? So in any case, family, like I said before, the purpose of this, family, is just to show you a pattern, right? Show you a pattern that hasn't changed for all these years. And then comes the 400 years, right? So, I know there's different thoughts on the 400 years, but in my opinion, it's hard to deny what's going on in the world and the turmoil that's going on in the world, by the way, which started during the Trump presidency. So it's interesting that he's scheduled to be back in the seat, but a story for another day. But in any case, family, at 400 years, we're still seeing this, still seeing these targeted policies against our community. However, the question is, family, how have these policies changed since, the Great Awakening? How have these policies changed since so-called African Americans are waking up all around the world, learning that we're Israel, right? And trying to wake up our people? How have these policies changed? And I'm going to introduce to you, family, the concept of an African Israelite assassin. So what are you talking about, Benaiah? Well, I'm going to show you a pattern, right? So I'm big about patterns. I'm big about let's find out. Let's analyze, either be an event or a series of events. And let's just see if we can find a pattern, right? Find a pattern. So let's take a look at a few things to see if we can find a pattern, and just to see how this pattern potentially applies to the so-called African Israelite population today. Because again, there's a pattern, before we hit that 400 years, before we became aware of who we were, there was a pattern against our community anyway. Like there was a pattern against African Americans anyway. It's still going on today. But now that you're awake, the question is, how has that pattern changed? So to answer that question, family, let's take a look. I'm just going to do a quick check just to make sure my mic's still going. All right, mic's still Mike's still good. All right. Yeah, Mike's still good. All right. And it says, let's take a look at the pattern of poisoning. So of course, when I talk about we talked about the air pollution, that's poisoning via the air. Talked about the water pollution, that's poisoning via the water, right? And so on and so forth. So now we're going to talk about, and those were more discrete poisonings, right? Those were more, things that weren't done in the open, right? They weren't necessarily obvious. We had to discover those. And these are things along that same vein. So let's take a look at a pattern. So it says, you can see it on your screen. It says Israel poisoned Palestinian lands. And these are things that you may not be aware of. And so, during the, when the Israelis moved into the land and they were trying to move the Palestinians off the land, you may not be aware that there was a poisoning or, poisoning event or events that took place. And this is what you're reading here. This is from an article from Haaretz, right? Just so that you can see it there, a Haaretz article. And we're going to read it. And it says, this is part of the article. And it says, the first step was dispossessing residents of the nearby Palestinian village of their land under the false pretext of making it a military training zone. Now, remember, when we were reading about, the Black community, one of the places that they were placing near the Black communities were military bases, right? Not only were they placing landfills and water treatment centers and stuff like that, but they were also placing military bases near Black communities. And so here we see the same thing happening in the Palestinian community, where they were trying to move them out. It says they were trying to move them under the false pretext of making it a military training zone. It says when the Palestinians insisted on cultivating the land, Israeli soldiers sabotaged their tools. It says soldiers were later ordered to use vehicles to destroy crops. So they were trying to get them out so bad, they went and they had corn growing. They was tearing up the corn or whatever they had growing. And it says a radical solution was employed when this failed. It says a crop duster spread a toxic chemical. It says the substance was lethal for animals and dangerous for humans. So you can imagine these planes flying over. And I know we have these things called chemtrails today that we have no idea what's being sprayed on those chemtrails. And that too could be, affecting our community. But in either case, family, it says the substance was lethal for animals and dangerous for humans. So basically, even over in that contested land over there, family, they were turning to what I would call, biological poisoning, spraying toxic chemicals in the air over humans and crops and stuff, causing people to get sick. Again, we're looking at this for pattern, right? We're looking at this for pattern to see what people are willing to do, against the people that they are threatened against. Let me say it again. I want you to see the pattern of what people are willing to do against a people that they feel threatened against. Well, let's keep reading. It says the full details of the affair have been revealed 51 years later. So they didn't figure out all this stuff until later. People were just getting sick. Crops were just, not growing. But it turns out that it was something that was carried out by the IDF, right? It was a military exercise that was carried out. Only finding this out 51 years later. And it says, thanks to a new project by TUAB, no I'm messing up that name, Center for Israel Studies at New York University. Next slide. It says military files held in the IDF's archives preserve documents detailing the spraying in Aqaba. Right. So they have documents on it. At this point in time, it's out in the open. Haaretz is reporting on it. I'm sure there was other periodicals that were carrying the story as well. Actually, I do have other articles as well. But in the event, family, this is a pattern. This is a pattern. So I'm going to kind of skip through some of these other slides because basically it's still talking about the same thing. So documents further reveals IDF general staff officer estimated the damage to Palestinians due to the spraying would amount to, and they gave an amount for that as well. But let's read this. This is another Haaretz, and it says, place the material in the well. So not only was stuff sprayed in the air, a toxic biological agent was sprayed in the air, intentionally sprayed on top of people, animals, and crops. But also they were poisoning the water. Poisoning the water. Black community, we've seen this before. We just read about that earlier at the start of this presentation. Again, we're looking for patterns. We're looking for patterns. So you can see the highlighted section says, for decades, rumors and testimonies swirled about Jewish troops sent to poison wells in Arab villages. Now, researchers have located official documents of the cast dye bread operation. The cast dye bread operation. So you can see there is a pattern. There is a pattern, right? And it says a month and a half later, he wrote biological materials that were purchased in $2,000. Only now, 74 years later, has a connection between the two entries come to light. So again, a lot of this stuff, family, that was done, comes to light years and years later, years and years after people were poisoned and unfortunately they were unalived, right? And then they decide to bring this stuff out, right? Then people aren't too concerned about the truth getting out there because it's already happened. And the people that would benefit from any sort of lawsuit, probably aren't around anymore. Right? It says the newly unearthed documents show that this operation was much broader in scope than earlier believed, and that other top military and political figures besides Ben Gurion were involved. So in other words, family, a lot of people had their hands in this operation to poison the waters. And what do they call this? What was the name of this operation? Operation Cast Thy Bread. Operation Cast Thy Bread. So again, family, we're looking at this just to see a pattern and hopefully as you can start to see, families, that these patterns are starting to match the pattern that we're seeing in the Black community. Poisoning the air, poisoning the water. Well, what else is out there? Well, of course, we saw that in the news, of course, all that stuff that's going on over in Israel the state of Israel. And you've heard about the pagers and phones, right? So they were using pagers and phones. And actually, let me see if I can switch screens, because what I'm going to do is that I'm going to show a quick video. And this is just to show you, that a pattern, right? So I just want to show you what people are willing to do against a people that they are threatened against. What people are willing to do against a people that they are threatened against. What are they willing to do? Well, they're willing to spray them with chemicals. They are willing to poison their water, and they're willing to enter the supply chain and booby trap devices where, in this case, it was pagers. I say pagers and phones. There were phones as well as other things that were impacted, but also radios. So let me share this with you, fam. I'm going to stop sharing my screen and let's take a look at the pagers. Let's take a look at the pagers.
Hezbollah reportedly ordered around 5,000 pagers from Taiwan, a country known for producing about 90% of the world's most advanced semiconductors. These pagers were destined for Lebanon. However, what makes this story particularly intriguing is what allegedly happened during the shipment process. At some point along the way, a spy agency is believed to have intercepted the shipment and tampered with the pagers. They discreetly altered the internal components, replacing one of the two identical batteries with a hidden explosive device. This modification was done so subtly that it went unnoticed. Once the changes were made, the altered pagers were quietly sent back to Hezbollah as if nothing had happened.
Fair use. Thank you, Eamon.
To help you understand better about the explosive pager, let's take a look at how it works. At its core, the battery powers the entire device. This is the speaker and emits audio alerts to notify the user of incoming messages. The motor adds a physical vibration alert, making the pager effective in silent mode. The radio antenna coil receives wireless signals like VHS, and the microprocessor converts these signals into readable messages. In short, these are often low-tech and difficult to track.
Now, what I will tell you, family, so what they found out was that somehow, some way, the Israelis, they actually started a company. They started a company, and it was somewhere in, Russia. I think it was like somewhere up in the territory of the Khazars, of all places. And it was there that they created these booby trap pagers. And of course, they sent these pagers over to Hezbollah, and of course, all the stuff that you see in the news. It was unalive in destruction, right? Unalive in destruction. And again, this is a pattern of what we're looking at, a pattern of what people are willing to do against a people they are threatened against. What people are willing to do against the people they are threatened against. So that was the pagers. So I'm just going to show you the walkie-talkies.
The first round of explosions related to the walkie-talkie and pager attack incident occurred in Lebanon's capital, Beirut. This also affects several other areas of the country at around 15:45 local time, which translates to 3:45 p.m. The blasts continued to occur throughout the country for 2 days. This attack also allegedly targeted mobile phones, laptops, solar energy cells, as well as walkie-talkie radios that were purchased at a similar time, about 5 months earlier, as the exploding pagers. This is the Icon-branded walkie-talkie, a widely recognized and reliable communication device.
Now, just for a quick thought here, family. So one of the things that people started asking is that, well, if they're willing to do this, what else have they done? Like, what other supply chain products have they intercepted and put some stuff in? And this is against the people that they are threatened against. I keep stressing that, family, because they have said that there are other people that they are threatened against, right? And we'll get to that in a little bit. But the point here is family, is once they did this or revealed that they have done this, then the question has to be, well, what else have they put their hands in, and where are those products?
Often used in various industries and by professionals for secure, long-range communication. Let's take a closer look inside this walkie-talkie to better understand its main components.
All right. Well, I'm not going to go through the whole thing, family. I think you get the gist of it. And that is, they have actually, let me share my other screen here. They have done certain things to the people that they are not. Hang on, I'm trying to do two things at once. Let me do share the screen. Let me pull up my slide here. Pull that back up. Here we go. All right. But we're starting to see a pattern emerge. All right. Pattern: use chemicals or devices, use the water. And, as you can, as we're seeing in the news reports over and over again, they go after the leaders. That's what you're seeing over in, whether it be Hezbollah or Hamas. Their pattern is to go after the leaders. And it's not just those two groups. We've seen folks go after leaders in other circumstances. But that is a pattern, undeniable pattern, that we see over and over again. That is important. And what I want to start showing you, family, are things that they do or have done that it's not just pagers and cell phones. They also use other means to, whether it be assassinating people or, take out people that they deem as a threat, right? Take out people that they deem as a threat. It's more than just pagers and cell phones. As you can see on the screen, this is an article from the Economic Times. Let me make sure I'm not on mute. There we go. Yeah, the Economic Times, and it says how Israel's deadly toothpaste assassination method took place decades to expose it. Again, family, when these things are done, it's taking decades or years before it comes to light. Like, man, y'all did this. And this was back in the 70s. This was back in the 70s. And what I tell people is that, like, when you see people speak out against a certain group and all of a sudden they become unalived, like whether it be, for whatever reason, based off of the pattern, you have to wonder, was this a job that was done? What was this an operation bred? Right? Was this an operation that was done? But as you can see, let's take a look, family. Toothpaste assassination. Israel's Mossad allegedly used poisoned toothpaste to assassinate Palestinian leader Wadi Haddad in 1978. Linked to numerous attacks, Haddad's severe illness led to his death. Kept secret for decades, the operation, again, there's that operation again. The operation illustrates Mossad's low signature methods. Mossad's low signature methods to counter, listen, threats. Revealed in detailed investigative accounts and interviews years later. So the point I'm showing you here, family, is that there are low signature methods. There are ways that they have used that's not necessarily broadcast over mainstream media, not as extravagant or I will say not as public as pagers, cell phones, and laptops going, boom, but rather, as you can see, as we go through this article, you can see that this one is subtle. And this is, something that they use, again, to take out leaders, something that they use to take out leaders. So let's read about it. It says, rather than opting for a high profile execution, Mossad chose a discreet method to avoid international scrutiny. They assigned the operation to Agent Sadness. So I guess that was an operation. Agent Sadness, who had access to Haddad's personal space. So basically, they were invading this person's personal space to deliver this, this poison. It says on January 10th, 1978, Agent Sadness replaced Haddad's regular toothpaste with the specially prepared toxic version. Listen, it says the toxin developed by Israel Institute for Biological Research. Come on now. Was designed to enter Haddad's bloodstream through his mucous membranes, delivering a gradual fatal dose. So in other words, as he kept brushing his teeth, just over time, gradually, he would start to get sick and he would have no idea what this was or how this happened. Right. Just want to show you this, family, just to show you the pattern. I'm showing you a pattern of what people are willing to do against a people that they feel threatened against. And so, and of course, after we go through this, family, you have to, just keep this in mind when certain movements come around, how leaders of certain movements become unalive or they become sick, right? Some sort of unexplained disease. I just want to show you that there's an organization that has a pattern of doing these things. In fact, you can see in this article, it was a biological lab or research. It was from the Israel Institute of Biological Research. So this was done by a research lab center, right? They designed that. They literally designed a poison to take somebody out. And it says Haddad's illness. Let's keep reading. It says Haddad's illness. It says, and I just want to show you how it manifested over time, how slowly it manifested over time, and how they had no idea what happened. He says Haddad fell severely ill in mid-January while in Baghdad, experiencing severe abdominal spasms, loss of appetite, and rapid weight loss. Despite treatment by top Iraqi doctors, his condition deteriorated. The initial diagnosis was hepatitis. So, he's going to the doctor. The doctor is examining him. The doctor has no idea. It's like, I think it's hepatitis. I don't know. Right. And it says later followed by a severe cold. I'm sorry. It says Despite treatment by Iraqi doctors, his condition deteriorated. The initial diagnosis was hepatitis, later followed by a severe cold. His worsening symptoms included hair loss, raised suspicions of poisoning. As his health continued to decline, Yasser Arafat, leader of the Palestinian Liberation, so this back in the day, organization, sought help from East German Secret Service, the Stasi. And just to jump down to the highlighted area, it says extensive testing, doctors could not determine the cause of his illness. So the guy was getting sick. And they had no idea. They were just trying different things because, again, this was a gradual thing. It was taking just over time. His conditioning was worsening, and they had no idea. But again, this was, this poison was done in an Israeli lab, right? And it was designed to work over time, right? So let's keep going, family. Again, just showing you a pattern. So, Brother Benai, why are you bringing this up? Well, and this, of course, doesn't have anything to do with the Black community. Well, what I want to show you, family, is, again, I'm showing you the pattern of what people are willing to do against a people that they feel threatened against. Well, are they threatened by the Black community? Well, let's take a look. So I'm going to stop sharing my screen. Let me pull this up. Let's take a look. Let's see if the same, organization that's involved in these clandestine affairs, whether it be toothpaste, whether it be putting stuff in wells, whether it be spraying stuff, putting stuff in the air. Let's say, against a people that they are being threatened against. Let's see if the Black community is a threat, to an organization. Let's take a look, family.
Peace, family. My name is Vicki Dillard. Thank you so much for tuning into African Diaspora News Channel. Make sure you give us a big thumbs up, and share the broadcast. Thank you so very much. Now, family, I want you to take a look at this very brief clip of an Israeli consul official making what appears to be some very disturbing, dangerous, and damaging statements about Black American youth in particular.
Fair use.
I found this clip very important to discuss at this time because there's so much happening in our world, and we are supposed to have a very strong and democratic alliance with Israel. So it's disturbing to hear these comments. Watch this.
The problem with Israel is with the young generation of the Black community. Black Lives Matter starts there.
So just to give a little bit of context to what you're hearing, you're listening to Judith Varney Shore, an Israeli consul general in Atlanta. And she says, quote, the major problem with Israel is the young generation of the Black community.
Why would she say that? Why would she say that, family? Out of all the threats that Israel is surrounded by, whether it be Iran and Hezbollah, all these enemies around, instead of mentioning them, she would say the young Black folks are the threat. And she's in Georgia as she's saying this. She's a person, forgot what her position is, but I guess she's a person of position in the government. So why is she pointing out the Black community?
I'm gonna say that again. How are our friends and allies in Israel saying their consul, this is a government official, why would she say, quote, the major problem with Israel is with the young generation of the Black community? What in the world is really going on? This is footage leaked from a censored documentary on some interesting ties between them and the United States. And so just for some of you may or may not know, that Al Jazeera had done a documentary, and I was told that it was delayed and there were some other things that were going on there. So this is really interesting, and I find it fascinating, of course, that mainstream mass media isn't really talking about this. And I'm just saying that if Israel is supposed to be our democratic ally in that particular region of the world, we have some questions here.
The problem of Israel is with the young generation of the Black community.
Yeah. And so one of the things, family, that, especially when I started looking into organizations such as like the ADL and stuff like that, one of the things I was surprised about was to the extent that they went to go after or point out or paint or portray the African Israelite community as a threat. Like, for instance, like if you go to, back in the day, you go to the Southern Poverty Law Center's website or the ADL's website, and they'll have, they'll list all these radical groups, these groups that were known for violence. And right in the midst of that listing of known violent groups, of course, it's kind of like how they do us on the 11 o'clock news. They had African Israelites, or what they would call Black Hebrew Israelites, right? So always trying to paint our community as a threat. And what I tell people is that, I'm sure just like you all, family, you have been part of many, many other Israelite communities, African Israelite communities, whether you're here in the States or abroad. And speaking on my experiences, I have never gone to an assembly, heard a lesson where anyone was talking about doing violence against anybody else. Like, that was never a topic of discussion. Like, never, ever, ever. Right? Why? Because we adhere to the laws, statutes, and commandments found in the scriptures. So what they're trying to portray our community as, they're trying to portray our community as a lawless community, one that doesn't have any laws, statutes, and commandments, when in fact we are the ones that are following the laws, statutes, and commandments to our best of our ability, which is, it's interesting, family. It's interesting. But I said all this to say that over and over again, our community was being portrayed as some sort of threat. And as you can see in this video clip, this lady is trying to portray the community as a threat. Now, she's kind of going a little bit beyond what the ADL and the Southern Poverty Center and the Manhattan Project and those guys, what they'll do. And she's actually not saying Israelite. She's just saying young black men in general. Right. She's painting a broad brush, which is even worse. Right. And again, maybe you'll say like, well, Brother Benai, I'm not, worried about that. It doesn't impact me. Well, let's say one of the things that when you look at the struggles that the Black community has had to deal with over the years, police brutality has been at the forefront. Well, did you know that the ADL actually trains local, state, and federal law enforcement? Did you know that they're the ones that actually there was a project called Project Megiddo, right? Project Megiddo, where they actually, gave or provided the FBI with a list of organizations that they thought was dangerous to the Union. Guess who they put on the list? A peaceful, Most High fearing people, which is what they call Black Hebrew Israelites, trying again to paint us in that light. So in any case, family, I just want to show you that, whether you know it or not, so-called Black African American community are viewed as a threat. And the reason why, and of course, I'm saying that that's a problem because they have a pattern of doing things to a community that they feel are a threat.
Black Lives Matter starts there.
And the reason this is important is because if your governmental officials have these types of thought, what's going into the laws and the policies that are known and unknown? Your world engagement, geopolitics, how does that look when this is privately something that they believe is a problem for their nation some very many miles away? Now, I've discussed this before, that some of our police in America are trained by Israeli law enforcement. Did you know that some American law enforcement agents, I'm talking about state and local, travel to Israel for training? And did you know that certain officials from there come to the United States to train our police? And there have been reports that have traced some of the maneuvers, some of the anti-Black, very dangerous and detrimental maneuvers that cause our folks to be taken out or severely injured, that some of those tactics were taught, from their law enforcement agencies. So I think we're going to have.
Whoa. Did you hear that, family? Let me back it up a little bit. Let me back it up. See if I can capture it again. Let's say it again, Vicky.
Maneuvers that cause peace. And there have been reports that have traced some of the maneuvers, some of the anti-Black, very dangerous and detrimental maneuvers that cause our folks to be taken out or severely injured, that some of those tactics were taught, from their law enforcement agencies. So I think we're going to have to rethink some things, I believe, about this, and have a come to Jesus meeting on some of this stuff. Talk Black to me. If you say you're an ally and we give, billions of dollars in support every single year, there's got to be something else that we discuss here. Somebody.
All right. You get it. As you can see, there is a problem. And I did see a comment from about the context, and that is a thing. Cause I've seen, I've seen a fuller video of it, and the context is still the same. It's not like she's talking about rainbows and lollipops in that. I'm talking about the person that said that Blacks are a threat. It's not like she was talking about rainbows and lollipops or giving out candy to the Black folks, Black children, that the Black children are the problem because they grab too much candy. No, she was talking about problems. She's talking about the problem to that community. So anyway, I think you get what she's saying. So let's go back to our screen here. So again, family, the point I want to show you here, family, is that what are people willing to do? I want to show you what people are willing to do against a people that they feel threatened by, right? What people are willing to do against a people they feel threatened by. And so you might be saying, all right, Brother Benaiah, so what does all this have to do with me? Well, say that to say this, family. This is really a cautionary tale to keep your eyes open. Israel, if you are an Israelite leader, if you have a platform on YouTube, keep your eyes open. Why do you say that? Well, again, I've been blessed enough to be able to share, the Most High's. I believe is to share in the Most High's awakening and help share the history with, the Israelite community over the earth, really. I mean, we've had people from different countries and states and all this other stuff, praise be to the Most High that were awakened through the Most High working through us. But set out to say, family, in doing that, I've seen things. I haven't brought them out. But I personally have seen stuff too, right? And subtle things. What are you talking about, Brother Benaiah? Remember, we talked about air poisoning. We talked about water poisoning, even food poisoning, right? And I've been in places where I've had people try to do things like subtle things, like try to switch water bottles with me. Like, I don't know if you've ever been to a place, family, where, you stop by a convenience store, you get a water bottle and somebody else has a water bottle. But to have somebody follow you around with a similar water bottle and then, if you're taking your water bottle with you, let's say, for instance, if you go to the restroom and you set your water bottle down and they try to switch water bottles, and I can tell when people try to switch water bottles, you notice that certain things. I even, and you have to believe, family, I am the quintessential skeptic when it comes to these things. I like proving things out scientifically. So what I did, family, was in that sort of situation, I said, well, let me see if this was a one-off, right? Because I didn't take the water bottle. I poured the water bottle out. I was like, you know what? Let me switch water bottles and see if people come around with the water bottle that I switched out with. And sure enough, when I switched water bottle, other people started switching water bottles, and they tried to switch water bottles with me. And I'm telling you, family, like this sort of stuff went on for over a month of purchasing random water bottles and doing things like looking at the water level in my water bottle. And sure enough, seeing people have the same water level in their water bottle, trying to swap out water bottles with me when I would go to a place to set it down. And I said all, like I said, family, I said all that to say, be on your guard, family. Pray for discernment. And when I tell you, family, I'm the quintessential tester when it comes to things. Part of my job is testing stuff. I tested this over a month, probably over 100 water bottles. And I can tell you that is a pattern. And if people are trying to switch my water bottle out, I'm sure they're trying to switch something out with somebody else that's in Israel. So take this with a grain of salt, family. Like I said, if you are, you got a platform, you have a voice, be on your guard. If you got, whether it be something to drink, I always used to have this policy about if you leave your drink on the table, don't come back and drink whatever's in that cup, right? Or food or something like that, or have somebody at the table that you can trust, that sort of thing. Be on your guard. Be on your guard, because there are people out there that have a history of doing this stuff. And when you think about like the Kyrie Irving situation, where people were trying to publicly lynch Kyrie and that didn't work, then, you have to wonder if the strategy switched from public to private to a more hidden means, right, to go against a people that they feel threatened against. All right. Well, again, fam, like I said, I don't want to keep you too long, but I do want to get this message out, because if you notice in the Israelite community, like whenever, if you have these leaders, if you kind of look back over the years and, you have these teachers and all of a sudden they get sick, right, and they pass away, unfortunately, I just want to put it out there that it is not beyond the realm of possibility that the same water bottle that they were trying to switch my water bottle out with, that somebody else got their water bottle switched out and something happened to them. So again, I've seen this, I've tested it out. I'm speaking on what I know and what I've seen. And I know other Israelites in the community that are getting sick from unknown sicknesses. And what popped in my mind as soon as I heard that was the water bottle, right? So with all that being said, family, of course, pray for discernment. Pray that the Most High protects you. I do that all the time. Pray that the Most High continue to be an enemy unto the enemies of Israel. Pray that their wicked schemes are exposed and destroyed. Pray that the crafty counsel is exposed and destroyed. And pray that their recompense is returned upon their own head. Hallelujah. All right. All right, family. Well, hopefully, again, hopefully this message and this warning resonates with you. And again, like I said, just be on your guard, especially if you're on social media. Just know that there is an enemy out there that are willing to take a more indiscreet approach against a people that they feel threatened against. All right. All right. Well, with that being said, family, we'll leave it at that. Just a quick reminder. If you are interested in going to the the conference, the African Israelite Justice Foundation Conference. It is this weekend. So if you haven't gotten your tickets, please go ahead and purchase your tickets. We still do have some space left. So go ahead and purchase your tickets. If you had problems purchasing your ticket, that's because we had a cutoff date for the tickets. But I opened the ticket processing page back up, so you can now go back and purchase your tickets. So go ahead and do that, family. And most high willing, we will see you out in Charleston, South Carolina. Have a great and awesome time. And don't try to switch no water bottles. All right. Well, love you, Ms. McCaw. And talk to you later. Stay blessed, Israel, and shalom.